Welcome into A Toast of Film. I'm one of your hosts, Ebo, and today we're keeping it short and sweet, just like me, because I will be reviewing today Flight Risk, the new theatrical release. Emilia Perez got a lot of Oscar nominations, and The Brutalist also got a lot of Oscar nominations. And speaking of Brutalist, it has been a very brutal week for your boy. But hey, we're here, we're doing the thing. I got a nice little Moscow mule that I'm toasting with, so let's get this party started. Starting out with Flight Risk. So this is from Mel Gibson, and we got Michelle Dockery as Marshall Madeline, and she is transporting Topher Grace's Winston, who he was kind of like a accounting type criminal, and she needs to get him to New York so he can testify against the person that he was doing all this funneling for. And things go wrong when they get on the plane, and Daryl the pilot, played by Mark Wahlberg, isn't actually Daryl the pilot. He's actually a hitman who's been hired to kill Topher Grace and Marshall Madeline. Let me tell you, I should have known. I saw the trailer. I thought it was going to be fun. I should have known what we were in for when the movie opens with, I don't know if it's CGI, I don't know if it's AI, but this really terrible moose outside Topher Grace's window that's kind of a pointless scene. And the dialogue in this movie is pretty pitiful. You know, Mel Gibson, he's created a lot of great things. He's acted in a lot of great things. This is not one of them. I wanted this to be stupid fun. Instead, it's just stupid without the fun. Now, I will say there's two things that, made me chuckle. One, Mark Wahlberg, like most of the time in this movie, he's just going, ah, which I thought was kind of funny. What was hilarious, though, every time this happened, I actually did laugh, was Topher Grace would let out these like little girl screams, like just, like, but really high pitched, really loud. Every time those happen, it was funny. Michelle Dockery does a good job in this. She seems like, I just think the writing held everything back. Everybody, they're doing what they were asked of, but when you're asked for not something great, you're going to produce something that's not great, most of the time. So Flight Risk, not a great film. I definitely don't think you need to see it in theaters. If you want to watch it when it hits streaming, sure, maybe you could have a good time. But for me, I'm going to give it like a, I don't know, like a 1.8 out of 5 cheers. Not a great week, because let's just say the scores are not staying high this week. Next up, we have Emilia Perez. This movie's getting a lot of opinions said about it online. So this is from Jacques Audiard, and we have Carla Gascon as a cartel boss who turns to Emilia Perez through transgender surgery. And we got Zoe Saldana, who plays Rita, his lawyer, ends up being her lawyer, what have you. And then Selena Gomez plays Jessie, who is the wife of the cartel boss. So my problem with this movie is I don't think it should have been a musical. I get what they're going for, because unlike Joker 2, which had just pathetic musical numbers, this at least had fun intent. A lot of the sequences, they're very colorful, a lot of people dancing, but the problem is the lyrics are just not up to par with what they're trying to present. And with this movie, to get to the emotional depth they're looking for, I think it could have done without the songs. That's just my opinion. I don't know. In this movie, it got nominated for tons of Oscars. It's probably going to win a bunch of them. I don't think so, especially when you have films like The Substance, films like Anora, that are certified, bona fide great films. I don't think something like this is on the same level. Even Dune 2, which y'all know I'm not a fan of, I think Dune 2 is a more prominent, well-made film than this. So Emilia Perez, I'm gonna give a generous 2 out of 5. I didn't enjoy it. I felt that it was too disconjointed, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me. Like I said, maybe had it not been a musical, or maybe if it had leaned more into the musical and just been like a pure musical, I might have enjoyed it. Finally, okay, this movie I got some problems with. So this is The Brutalist. So I went and saw this in theaters yesterday. This movie is 3.5 hours long. 3.5 hours. And there's an intermission. When that intermission came up, I said, the audacity. I'm already sitting here for 3.5 hours when this movie does not need to be 3.5 hours. And you're going to have a 15-minute intermission. Do this, have the balls to make a movie. If you're going to make a movie over 3 hours, don't have intermission, because that's a coward's way out. That's cheap tactic. That's why we'll be getting into our top 5 films that are over 5 hours. And I might be mistaken, but from what I can remember, none of them have an intermission. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. But this movie, like I said, is far too long for the premise we get. So this is from writer director Brody Corbett, who he was actually one of the villains in the US remake of Funny Games. And he was also the writer director of Volslux, which had Natalie Portman. So we got Adrian Brody as Laszlo Toth. Basically, he escapes, during the very darkest times of Germany, Europe, that type deal, World War II era. And he's a Jewish man. He comes to America, and it's him. And he was this incredible architect, and now he's resorted to nothing. We got his wife, Felicity Jones, who plays Erzbet. We have Rafi Cassida as Zofia, sorry. I can't read my own handwriting sometimes. As his niece. Isaac DeBonks as Gordon. And then, so they are struggling. And then through a renovation that goes awry, he ends up working for the family. Guy Pearce, who plays Harrison, and his kids, Joe Alwyn as Harry and Stacey Martin as Maggie. I really like Stacey Martin as Maggie and Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce, heck of a performance in this movie. Adrian Brody, of course, fantastic performance. Everyone else did good, but no one else really drew me in. Like I said, this movie's too long, the intermission, and there's just too much that could have been cut that serves absolutely no purpose. There's a whole scene where, the people, when they first arrive, they're getting hookers. Serves no point to the movie. There's a scene where he's watching an old-timey porno, and they show you this old-timey porno. There's no point to that. And the worst part is all the scenes are dragged out. In the epilogue, we don't need to see the entire boat ride there. There was so much that could have been cut from this movie to, number one, not make it 3.5 hours. And number two, more importantly, to make it tighter, because this movie, for me, the narrative doesn't work because everything's so drawn out. If we just had a tighter narrative, a tighter film, if this was 2 hours, I think this could be a masterclass in filming. But because it's not, there's just so much filler. And so much of this feels like Mr. Corbett is just patting himself on the back. He's like, oh, I'm going to make my opus. I'm going to show you all the filmmaking techniques I know, which, sure, if that's what you want to do, but we know that movies are art, but at the same time, we have to remember movies are movies. Movies are for enjoyment. Movies are for us to escape. And if you want to make a movie that's pure art, that's fine. But you have to understand that you're not going to get the same kind of review for somebody who makes a movie that's pure enjoyment. So The Brutalist, I think that I also, real quick, I get why he did it, but I could have really done without the heroin angle of this movie. I don't like drug stuff, so could have done without it. The Brutalist, while it is well made, well acted, especially Adrian Brody, Guy Pearce, and Stacey Martin, I think that it's just too much of the director trying to showcase too much dragged out scenes, and to me that just comes off as sloppy. So Brutalist, while I do think it is a good film, I can't go higher than a 2.3 out of 5 cheers. But you may ask yourself, okay, 3-hour film. Can these 3-hour films be good? Me and my buddy Corey, who's been on the pod, we were talking about this, and I came up with a top 5. Now, these films are all over 3 hours. One of them is 3 hours and 1 minute, but hey, it's still over 3 hours. And I am going to tell why these films are going to be acceptable to be over 3 hours. So I got to say this because this would be my whole list basically, but I'm excluding the Lord of the Rings extended cuts because only Return of the King is over 3 hours if you go by theatrical runs. I mean, when I do my Lord of the Rings marathons, which I do once a year, I do the extended cuts, which is almost 12 hours. But I'm going by theatrical cuts, and I didn't want to include Return of the King because for me, they're one thing. So if I can't include the other two, then I'm not going to include them. So just to let y'all know, Lord of the Rings will not be on this just because I'm going by theatrical runs, not extended cuts, director cuts, what have you. So number 5, I'm going to go Spartacus. Spartacus, whether you've seen the movie or not, this movie was incredible for its time, and it still to this day has cultural significance with I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus. Great film, wonderful story, just expertly made. Number 4, another movie that people to this day still love. That is The Green Mile. I did not remember this movie being over 3 hours, but I mean, Green Mile, solid movie, great acting, very enjoyable time, very tearful time. Number 3, I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but I'm going to do Peter Jackson's 2005 King Kong. I love this movie. I love all the King Kongs, even the bad ones. I own every King Kong, Son of Kong, every one of them. And I just love it. And I think it's a great film. I think they do a lot, expanding on Skull Island. So I'm going to put that at number 3. Now, it's top 2. This is where we get into something special. Number 2 is Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan. I have been very, I will tell you everything I hate about Christopher Nolan. I'll say it gladly, even though, Trey, Christopher Nolan is his number 1 director. However, to me, between either Interstellar or Oppenheimer, I think is his greatest work. The acting, the care. Now, do I disagree with how he's jumping around time? Yes. But there's no denying the just awe and incredible film that Oppenheimer is. But number 1, this movie's 3 hours, 1 minute. I'm going to be serious when I say this. If this movie was 5 hours, I still would have saw it 3 times in theaters opening weekend like I did when it released. And I saw it 3 times opening weekend because this one of the most incredible films ever made for those that went on the journey. That is Avengers Endgame. This movie, I don't care what the length is, it wasn't enough. We went on this 10-year journey. We went on 30 films to get to Avengers Endgame, and it lived up to it. And I still watch it to this day. I don't feel the length at all. So Avengers Endgame, it's my number 1 over 3-hour movie. Yeah, there were a couple other movies. Wolf of Wall Street, good movie. Almost made my top 5. And you know what? Shout out to Titanic because everyone in my age range, millennials, we had the Titanic VHS where it was the 2 VHS and you had to put in the one and then take it out and put in the second. So shout out to Titanic. But guys, we hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you want to let us know what you think about Flight Risk, Emilia Perez, or The Brutalist, or you want to tell me something I should check out, it's Oscar season. The nominations have been released, and I will be doing an Oscar special. I still need to watch Conclave, Nickel Boys, and I'm Still Here. And then I will be telling you who should really win each category. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, I still need to see those other three. But let me tell you the best ways you can do this. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, A Toast to Film, all one word. Check us out on Twitter at film_toast. Check us out on beautiful YouTube. Just search A Toast to Film Podcast. And guys, we just hope you have a good night and good view.